who am I? Am I a princess? Oh my God, like why? That was a shock, a big shock. That's what I really love in Japan. I call this place home.
Thank you for cooperation. Where are you from?
I'm from Iran, Sabzavar in Iran, northeast of Iran.
Do you live here or are you a tourist?
I live here
How long are you in Japan?
10 years. So far, so good.
What brought you to Japan?
Well, initially, I had to come to Japan with my ex-husband. He had to do his research here. When I came to Japan, I started looking for a career because I was an English instructor in Iran. Then here, I started working in an international school, and I have been teaching English here since 2015. And it's fun, I would say.
Please tell us your good memories in Japan.
I have a lot of good memories here, but for me, there's one general rule to make something into a good memory, and that's having a good companion. So most of my good memories in Japan, like those quality time that I spent with my best friends.
Is it difficult to make Japanese friends?
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of Japanese friends. One big reason for that is the language, because I can't really speak the language. I understand to some extent, but I cannot really talk. I'm not confident enough to talk. So that was like a big barrier for me. But I have a few Japanese friends. I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, but most of them speak Persian. They speak Farsi. So I really didn't have the chance to practice my Japanese.
In Japan, students learn English in their school, but actually they can't speak good English.
That's true, but I think one reason that if we say that they can't really speak, mainly because they feel shy. Number one, they feel shy. Number two, this is like the most important reason, they are afraid of making mistakes. Because they're afraid of making mistakes, that's me too, by the way. That's why I don't speak Japanese, because I'm afraid of making mistakes too. But I think for them, they want to sound perfect. They prefer not to say anything at all, rather than say something and make mistakes. That's like my almost 10 years of experience teaching English in Japan. They would prefer to be quiet in the classroom. If I ask a question, like a very simple question, what's your favorite food? And please give me a complete sentence. They could give me the word like sushi, but if I want a full sentence, they prefer to be quiet because they're afraid of like making a grammatical mistakes or something. We see a lot of Japanese who understand English, of course, but aren't really willing to talk, shy and being afraid of making mistakes.
Do you think Iranian people can speak in English?
Iranian people, like that's very interesting if we want to compare. Like I said, in Japan, Japanese are afraid of making mistakes, so that's why they don't speak a lot of English. But in Iran, people are willing, I don't want to say dying, but they're willing to speak English. They're just grab any opportunity. If they see like a tourist, let's say, or a foreigner walking on the streets, they would immediately like walk in and say something in English. That comes from main Iranian personality. They're very like outgoing and sociable. So they wouldn't be shy. They are not shy. They are not afraid of making mistakes. So they would immediately start talking to you in English. But the English you hear is really not the best English, I would say. You'll hear lots of mistakes, but I appreciate, like I prefer to have the conversation even with lots of mistakes and errors. That's much better than the being quiet. And
How did you learn English?
when I was in junior high school, my dad's the school principal, and he came back from school one day with a set with an English book. Look, Listen, Learn, that was the title of the book. I started listening to English. The fact that I had no idea what's going on and what they're saying kind of bothered me in the beginning, but my dad gave me a dictionary, so I started like trying to look, and then he would write the words for me, the easy words, and I would look up the words, and then when I started doing that, I realized this is like the most fun thing. As I grew up, I realized as you're learning a language, it's not just the language that you communicate with people. You learn the culture, you learn different prospects in life. I was lucky enough to, get to know it.
If you didn't learn English, your life would be different.
I can't really imagine. It looks scary and very, very different.
Have you experienced any culture shock in Japan?
Of course, I would say the respect. Everywhere I'd go, I'd see people responding to me in a very polite way. Polite to the extent that I didn't expect, because I wasn't very familiar with this kind of communication. People are very polite in Iran, but the level of politeness you see is much different. I remember I walked in a shoe store. I was gonna buy a pair of new shoes. I called the staff, I said, do you have this in this size? And she brought the shoes. So I did this. I wanted to grab the shoes and try it on. And then she was hesitant too, because she didn't expect me to probably show her my hands. And she started to unbox, took the pair out and started to open the lace. And I was like, wow. So after that, she's gonna pass it to me. So I'll be the one wearing it. And then she kneeled down. I was like, wow, who am I? Am I a princess? Where am I? That was really, really interesting. But honestly, during the first few times, I didn't find it interesting. I felt bad. Am I putting too much pressure on her? Am I the one who's causing trouble here? Does she have to do it, or does she want to do it? So it took quite some time for me to get used to all this. But that was a funny day for me in my life. I would remember that.
What about plastic bags, like you mentioned?
Oh yeah, that one. Back in Iran, if you want to do grocery shopping, they usually put everything in one plastic bag, or if you have a bag from home, they put it there and then that's it, you go home. But here, I walked in a supermarket and I want to buy fruits. I'm not going to talk about how expensive fruits and vegetables are here, but there's this peach who is wrapped in Saran wrap, and then that is inside a plastic bag. And that plastic bag is covered with those, I don't know what those white things are called, but they protect the peach from being pressured or damaged, I don't know. And that was inside a paper bag, and that paper bag was wrapped in plastic. And that was all inside a plastic bag. So 7, 8 layers of plastic. And I was like, oh my God, why does this have to be like this? I mean, I know the reason behind that, but do you really need to go to this extent? That was a shock, a big shock. And that's one reason actually that led to me turning into a vegan since 2019. I really wanted to go zero waste. I went vegan for other reasons too. This was one of the reasons, and I think Japan really needs to do much better regarding plastic usage.
Which country have you been to?
I've been to Malaysia, Dubai, Turkey, mostly for short visits.
So for living, Japan is the first foreign country to live.
Yes, this is the first. I really like it here now. I feel comfortable. This was really hard to say 5 years ago, but now I'm proud to say that I call this place home. The reason I call this place home, besides Japan being so fantastic with safety and with cleanliness and all those stuffs that we all know, I also found a community. I found people here who are amazing, and being around them would make this place home for me.
What do you think is the best thing about Japan out of those countries?
Clean. Number one, Japan being clean. Everything here works as you expect. So I would say if you're a person who loves to be surprised all the time, do not come to Japan. But if you like to have plans ahead of time, you want to know what you're doing on a certain Tuesday in the next 3 months, come to Japan. This is the country you should come. That's what I really love in Japan. It makes Japan stand out, I think. By finding a community that I love, I want to take this chance and introduce cultural house that we have established in Japan. It's called the Cultural House of Minu. The members are mostly Iranians and Japanese who are interested in the culture and literature and art of Iran. If you are interested in Iran, any aspects of Iran, mostly the literature, the culture, the art, the history of Iran, feel free to contact us. What we mainly do in Khane Farhang Minu is we have events that we read literature, and we have events that we celebrate important dates like Nowruz, Yalda.
What do you do in those events?
The most recent events we had was event of Nowruz. The highlight of the event was reading poetry, and actually I have a poem for you today. If you're interested, I can read that poem, and it's a very hopeful poem by Hafez. This poem is about how life really works if you take it with a positive mindset. That would work for you. So if you're in a dark place in your life right now listening to this, I would provide you with a Japanese translation of this. I will read it in Farsi. رسید مژده که ایام غم نخواهد ماند، چنان نماند چنین نیز هم نخواهد ماند. من ارچه در نظر یار خاکسار شدم، رقیب نیز چنین محترم نخواهد ماند. چو پرده‌دار به شمشیر میزند همه را، کسی مقیم حریم حرم نخواهد ماند. چه جای شکر و شکایت ز نقش نیک و بد است، چو بر صحیفه هستی رقم نخواهد ماند. سرود مجلس جمشید گفتند این بود، که جام باده بیاور که جم نخواهد ماند. غنیمتی شمره شمع وصل پروانه، که این معامله تا صبحدم نخواهد ماند. توانگرا دل درویش خود به دست آور، که مخزن زر و گنج درم نخواهد ماند. بدین رواق زبرجد نوشته اند به زر، که جز نکویی اهل کرم نخواهد ماند.
Thank you for cooperation.
Yeah, sure. It was my pleasure, and feel free to ask any questions you have in the future. I'll be more than happy to help. Thank you. Bye-bye.